Are you an archer looking to enhance your skill and technique? In this video, I'm going to give you my 3 favorite tools for archery skill development. These tools not only helped improve my accuracy and form, but my mental focus as well. The first of my favorite archery tools is a light bow. I'm going to set down my full draw weight bow because when I don't have that in my hands, I'm able to work on my technique much more efficiently and with less physical stress. So when I reference a light bow, that means a light draw weight. Mass weight, not as important. A lighter mass weight is also helpful though. So generally speaking, just a bare riser with limbs that are very, very, very lightweight. It doesn't have to be the same exact length as your normal bow. So for example, this thing here is somewhere in the neighborhood of 20-ish pounds, which may be heavy for you at home, but for me this is extremely light because my normal bows, I'm using somewhere in the neighborhood of mid to upper 40s. So it's at least less than half. The best idea is to just get the lightest bow you can possibly find. There are some trainer limbs that are out there that are available, and if I can find them, I'll put them in links in the description below in case you're interested in checking out some very light practice draw weight bows. The idea is the lighter is better. If you can get down to 10 pounds, even less, that's perfect. All you're looking for is the actual structure of a bow, but just at a very light draw weight. So what I would do is I would use a mirror and check my anchor, and if I were to make changes, I could use the mirror as a reference to coach myself. So I'm going to use my viewfinder here in my camera, and I'm going to pay attention to it just like it was a mirror, and say if my anchor was here, but I wanted to get under my chin just like recurve shooters do, it may be very difficult with this full heavy bow to go from here down to here and try to understand what it feels like. Because the first time I go to anchor, I missed it, and now I can reposition. I can look at myself in my mirror and see, oh look, my hand is under my jaw, it's touching bone to bone, string, oh now it's on the tip of my nose, and that's a pretty good looking anchor. But if I were to be holding my bow back for that long period of time and to go from here, right, like I said, I was starting up here and I want to go down to Olympic style recurve. I don't know if you can see it, but I am shaking because it's very difficult to maintain this position to check my anchor in my mirror. And now I'm burned out. After the first draw, I'm done. Where if I use this light bow, I could stand there for seemingly hours in front of the mirror, constantly checking all sorts of different things in my form. And this thing right here, a light bow, is one of the most valuable tools that you can possibly have in your toolbox. Now I said bows don't have to be the same length. This light bow is several inches shorter than my regular bow. This is a 66-inch bow. This is a 72-inch bow. So some things that you can do with a light bow is practice in front of a mirror. You can face the mirror and look at your alignment. You can look at your head position. You can look at your grip position. You can look at many things from this position. And then I can also turn sideways, pointing this way, still keeping my eyes in the mirror and look at myself even in the right position. I can swing my eyes over and get an idea if I'm leaning back, my elbow's too high or too low. I can even point kind of off to the side like this. And the same type of thing, I can check my form and technique while maintaining the actual technique for longer periods of time and make adjustments much easier with the light bow. Every single day, I used to warm up with a light bow in front of a mirror, check my technique, make sure the changes that I made the days previous were solidified before picking up my full bow and actually going and shooting on the range. It's a great thing to do. Not only is it a warm-up, but it's a refresher for the technique you were changing days previously. My second favorite tool in archery skill development is a stretch band. It's a light stretch band, not a stretch band for developing strength like most people would. This is a yellow TheraBand, which is extremely lightweight. Colors mean something, especially in the brand of TheraBand, which is basically the manufacturer of these. Obviously, different companies make these now, but the darker the color, the heavier the weight. A black stretch band from TheraBand is very, very heavy compared to a light colored one, like a yellow one. For the same reason that a light bow is important, a light stretch band does the same thing. It allows me to get into position, to check technique, to adjust anchors, to adjust alignment, to adjust shoulder and elbow positions, to get into comfortable, normal, acceptable archery form ranges. And then what is beneficial of the stretch band over the light bow is I can release this without harming me or the equipment. So I can come to full draw, I can get into my new anchor position that I just found, make sure everything feels good, watch myself in the mirror, and follow through and check that as well. Ooh, that was a good one. All right, now I'm at full draw and I plucked that one. Okay, what's the difference between the two and how can I change that and how can I figure that out with a bow when I'm shooting it in front of a target? It's very different, very difficult because I'm very interested and excited to see the arrow impact on the target. So I'm always interested in that, and I may not pay attention to my technique. But something that I can do with this is I can travel very easily with it. I can even take this to work, put it in my pocket, and if I'm working in an office space, working somewhere where maybe I have access to a relatively low volume use bathroom, they have a mirror there. Maybe I have a mirror in my office, and on my lunch break I can practice shooting archery and not even have to go to the range. Basically, what I'm trying to do is to emulate how I shoot a bow. So when I use a stretch band, I come back and I check my anchor. Is my hand in the correct position? Yes, it is, because if the string was here, it'd be touching my nose. My hand is in the same position. It's very difficult when using a stretch band for the first few times, and something that you want to pay attention to is this. Most people, when they draw back a stretch band for the first time, they anchor way back here. And see how far back my hand is? It's nowhere near where it was when I had the light bow. The light bow is very far forward here. If I were to anchor as far back as what I was with the stretch band, I can't even come to full draw because the string is sitting on my face in a weird spot that I'm not used to. Having less rigid tools than a bow is very beneficial. Rigid being the string and the grip I can't vertically change, and there are some parameters like a string that's in the way that I can't do funky things with my head or my anchor. Whereas a stretch band, there are no limitations. I can move these different, I can pull them back in different ways, and the string's not going to hit me. So I have to learn how to control my form and technique with something that is less rigid and a whole lot less forgiving. And my third favorite tool when it comes to archery skill development is free, even better. It's between the ears, it is your brain. Mindfulness and visualization were very important in my development as an archer. Being aware of where my brain was and where my focus was very important to how fast I got better, as well as how likely I was to perform under pressure. Visualization was equally as important because it actually allowed me to make form changes much faster, as well as anticipate any sort of problems and to overcome them, more importantly, when at an archery tournament. Mindfulness is very simple. I have a video specifically created about developing mindfulness. I'll have a link in the description below and a card at the top up there. I'm not going to bore you with the exact details, but it's essentially just practicing being aware of where your thoughts are at a given moment, and then being able to bring your focus back when it drifts to the task at hand. And that could be anything from actually practicing mindfulness, focusing on your breath, the rising and falling of your stomach. Then when you think about what you're going to have for dinner that day, instead of judging yourself, bring it back to the thought of the breath and the rising and falling of the stomach. And you practice that for periods of time until you just become aware of mindfulness and aware when your thoughts are drifting. It's important, for example, real quick, at a tournament, the wind's blowing like crazy. And how many people do you hear complain about the wind? Oh, I hate the wind. It's blowing so hard. My arrows are going all over the place. It's drifting so far. Instead of me being distracted by the wind, I actually recognize that my thoughts want to drift because the wind is happening. And instead I use it as a reminder of, I need to make very strong shots. I need to have a very strong and aggressive bow arm, and I really need to pick my spot that I'm going to aim at because I'm aiming off for wind drift, and I have to shoot that spot with a lot of conviction, a lot of attention, and as much aggressiveness as I do when I'm aiming in the middle. So instead of being distracted by the wind and ultimately harming my performance, I've used it as a reminder to make my archery better that day. And that is mindfulness. So visualization you can actually use to develop your technique faster. One of the ways you can do that is to visualize your shot before you actually do it with the implemented changes being done correctly. For example, if I'm just shooting archery and I'm hoping I'm coming into anchor in the same place every single time, but for whatever reason, my hand keeps changing and it's just, not there all the time. And sometimes it's a little difficult to remember or to actually, implement because I'm so excited to shoot my arrows just like everybody else is. Before every single shot, I will sit there with my arrow and my bow. I'll look at the target and I'll visualize in my head anchoring correctly and then shooting a strong shot. Visualization can also be used for performance. So imagine you're going to a venue that you've been at before. You know what it looks like. You know the smell of the grass. You know where the wind's going to come from. You know that it may rain. Any of those things you can mentally prepare yourself for. For example, we'll just pretend that it's going to rain at the next outdoor event I'm going to, and I know it's going to. So instead of being distracted, be mindful, be aware, and then make an adjustment of preparing before the event, visualizing I'm on the field. Even if I haven't been there before, maybe there's pictures from last year I can go find, or see their website or their Facebook page and they might have some sort of information up of what it's going to look like. I will visualize myself on that field to a very deep level, overcoming obstacles such as torrential downpours, how I mentally will approach that day, and ultimately visualize myself overcoming the day with success. So those are my 3 favorite tools for archery skill development: a light bow, a stretch band, and my brain. All of those things are very cheap and easily accessible to most people. If you don't have a light bow or the ability to get one, maybe your local shop has loaner bows that they let beginners or kids shoot, and you could use those to warm up potentially. A lot of shops will allow you to use those if you ask politely and guarantee you'll put it back in the same condition you found it. The archers who make permanent changes that don't revert back to old habit have practiced a new one countless times, and hopefully more than those old habits were. So they become so ingrained and deep-seated into the subconscious brain that it's just automated. And the only way you get there is to practice and to do it over and over and over again. And you can do way more repetitions with a light bow or a stretch band and check your form without fatiguing. If you enjoyed this video, please consider sharing it. It genuinely helps this channel out. Do subscribe and hit that notification bell down below as well. And if you wouldn't mind, consider supporting this channel. I'm working on producing this content for free for archers around the world to enjoy. And if you wouldn't mind, consider supporting this channel. There's many different links in the description below on various different ways you can support, as well as you can go to my website, jkaminski.com. I'm just working on making this channel a good resource to all types of archers to help make it more approachable for more people.